Imagine you're 7 years old, standing frozen in the kitchen doorway, silently watching your mother crumble at the table, her eyes vacant, hollowed out by exhaustion, depression, or maybe something darker, something you don't yet have words for. The room is suffocatingly silent. You're so small, barely taller than the countertop, yet instinctively you understand. If I don't hold this together, nobody will. In that precise moment, your childhood quietly ends. No funeral, no mourning, just a quiet disappearance. You learn quickly to smile when you're not happy, to hide tears because tears would burden those around you. You memorize the subtle shifts in your mother's voice, your father's footsteps, the silence before the storm, always ready to manage the next crisis, even at your own expense. No one praises a child just for being a child until that child acts like an adult. Suddenly you're called mature, responsible, strong. But behind these words of praise is a cruel truth no one dares say aloud. Your innocence was sacrificed so others could remain comfortable. Your heart learns early to bury its needs, to bury its voice. Deep inside, you feel an anxiety too big for your small body to carry. Yet you say nothing, because you've already decided, my feelings are too heavy for anyone else to hold. Now you live your adult life quietly suffocating under the weight of that invisible burden. You smile through exhaustion. You hide pain behind achievement. And you wonder why, despite every success, you still feel profoundly unseen. Truth is, you've been unseen since the day you first learned to hide yourself. So now let me ask you the question you've silently avoided for years. How much of your life have you spent carrying the pain of a childhood you never truly had? Inside every adult who grew up too fast lies an invisible ache, a quiet grief for a childhood that was stolen. It's subtle, almost invisible, because you learned early to wear the mask so convincingly that even you forgot it was there. Think back to that child, smiling too much, laughing too quickly, swallowing tears because crying meant causing trouble. You mastered the delicate art of reading adults' moods, their subtle shifts of tone, the hidden warnings in their silence. You adjusted your behavior meticulously, shrinking yourself to fit into spaces where your real feelings weren't welcome. Each interaction became a tightrope walk, each word measured carefully, each step cautious. You believed that if you just stayed small, polite, and good, you might finally earn a fragile sense of peace. Because here's the truth no one ever said aloud. Children will abandon their own needs, their own voice, even their own identity if that's what it takes to feel loved and accepted. You weren't quiet because you wanted to be. You silenced yourself because your environment taught you that your authentic self was a burden. Love to your young mind became a transaction. Your silence for their stability. Your emotional needs traded for the illusion of safety. Picture yourself walking across a rickety, weathered suspension bridge high above a dark valley. Every step you take is cautious, fearful, your breath shallow. You believe deep down that if you pause, even for a single moment, the entire bridge, your entire family, your entire world will collapse beneath you. This constant tension isn't just stressful, it's exhausting. Yet you endure it quietly, convinced that your ability to hold everything together defines your worth. Or imagine yourself trapped behind an invisible glass wall. You see everyone clearly, desperately longing to connect. Yet nobody sees you. You wave, you shout. You pound your fists silently against the glass, but they move past you as if you don't exist. You're fully visible, yet entirely unseen. Your pain remains unnoticed, your voice unheard, your inner world invisible to the ones you crave attention from most. As an adult, the pattern continues. You become the peacemaker, the responsible one, the friend everyone calls during their crisis, but nobody asks if you're okay. You strive endlessly to earn approval and validation, yet always feel it slipping through your fingers. And when compliments finally arrive, they land shallow, temporary, fleeting. Because deep inside, you're still that child convinced that love must be earned, and never freely given. But let's pause here. Have you ever asked yourself why it feels impossible to say no? Why setting boundaries triggers an overwhelming guilt, as though prioritizing your needs somehow makes you unlovable? Have you ever wondered why, despite countless achievements, you still carry the nagging feeling of inadequacy? Here's a truth bomb you may not be ready for. Your achievements aren't your identity. They're a desperate attempt to justify your existence. You've spent years building a life around pleasing others, but somewhere along the way, you forgot how to please yourself. So, let me leave you with a question that might haunt you, that might even awaken something buried deeply. What would happen if you stopped pretending to be strong and finally faced the raw truth of the childhood pain you've carried silently your entire life? As an adult who had to grow up too soon, you've learned to live life always bracing yourself. It's subtle, yet constant. The endless overthinking, the relentless anxiety whenever you relax, even for a brief moment, fearing something terrible might happen. You analyze conversations repeatedly, replay interactions, questioning every nuance, every subtle shift in tone, looking for signs you've failed or disappointed someone. Your mind is perpetually scanning for threats because your earliest experiences taught you that safety depends on hypervigilance, on staying one step ahead. Perfectionism becomes your identity. You strive tirelessly, setting standards impossibly high, driven by a quiet yet relentless fear that anything less than perfect might mean abandonment, rejection, invisibility. Success, praise, validation, all fleeting comforts. Behind every accomplishment lingers a nagging feeling. What if this still isn't enough? Because somewhere deep within, you're still the child who learned early that love is conditional, approval temporary, and acceptance something you must endlessly earn. You have trouble setting boundaries. Saying no feels dangerous, as if refusing others will erase your worth entirely. You decline help instinctively, not from strength or independence, but from a deep, ingrained belief that asking for help makes you unworthy or weak. You prefer exhaustion over vulnerability, loneliness over risking burdening others. Quietly, you take on responsibilities far beyond your capacity, hiding your burnout behind polished smiles and practiced composure. You fear being seen as anything other than capable, because in your childhood home, needing support meant becoming invisible, unwanted, discarded. Imagine yourself alone, late at night, sitting in an empty office. The screen blurs in front of your tired eyes. You feel the weight of exhaustion in your bones, yet you refuse rest. In the silence, a familiar whisper rises from within, the voice of your inner child, still trapped at the moment childhood ended prematurely. You're only worthy of love if you remain strong and useful. This internal narrative guides your every action, dictating a life spent endlessly proving your value to others, but never fully recognizing it within yourself. Here's the truth bomb you've carefully avoided your entire adult life. Your greatest strength, your reliability, maturity, emotional competence was never truly strength. It was survival, plain and simple. Behind every fear you carry now is not responsibility or duty, but a wounded child who once stood alone, unseen, unprotected. Carl Jung spoke about the shadow, the hidden parts of ourselves formed by wounds we suppress and emotions we bury. He believed that until we face these hidden parts openly, we remain trapped in repetitive cycles of anxiety, loneliness, and emotional exhaustion. Alice Miller described this condition clearly. Children who sacrifice their authenticity to earn parental approval lose contact with their true selves, living life always craving the validation they were denied. Within you is that sensitive child, a small, fragile flame that holds your truest emotions, your deepest empathy, your profound capacity for connection. But instead of being protected, your sensitivity was seen as weakness, extinguished again and again by the harsh winds of unrealistic expectations. You've learned to distrust this flame, to hide it, to fear it. Yet that same sensitivity is your greatest strength. It allows you to understand others deeply, to feel compassion intensely. It's your emotional intuition, your natural capacity for love and kindness, qualities that became vulnerabilities instead of gifts because your environment taught you so. Your coping mechanisms, overworking, perfectionism, emotional withdrawal, are not just patterns. They're strategies your younger self developed to stay safe. They served you once, but now they imprison you, separating you from authentic relationships, from genuine intimacy, from yourself. You have mistaken survival for thriving, stability for joy, acceptance for love. And in doing so, you've never truly allowed yourself the space to heal. Now ask yourself honestly, if the child within you isn't a burden but your deepest source of wisdom, compassion, and authentic strength, what changes? But here's a sharper question, one you've quietly avoided your whole life. What if the most profound pain you've ever known isn't from the clear, visible wounds you experienced, but rather the deafening silence around them? The fact that nobody ever said, "I see your pain. It matters." Healing was never about reinventing yourself. It was always about quietly returning to the child within you, the one who carried burdens heavier than anyone knew. You've spent years being strong, never realizing the strength you admired most was rooted in survival rather than true resilience. But perhaps now it's time to pause, to breathe, and to finally acknowledge the quiet voice you've silenced for so long. Imagine opening that door inside yourself you've avoided for years. Behind it stands a small child, your younger self, quietly waiting to be seen. Their eyes hold an exhaustion no child should ever carry. Their small shoulders tense with the weight of a responsibility placed far too soon. They never asked for praise or recognition. All they wanted was someone to softly say, "I see you. You don't have to hold this alone anymore." Here's the truth you've never admitted. Your childhood didn't quietly vanish. It was silently sacrificed so you could earn the acceptance and love you deserved freely from the beginning. Allow yourself, just for a moment, to kneel down beside this child, to look gently into their tired eyes, and finally acknowledge their quiet pain. Notice how something inside you shifts, softens, and slowly releases. You don't need to be endlessly strong anymore. You can let go, rest, and finally just breathe. Because your worth was never defined by your strength or usefulness. It was always inherent, always yours, always enough. Healing begins quietly in small moments of gentle honesty. It begins when you finally ask yourself, what did I truly need as a child but never received? Perhaps it was acceptance without conditions, safety without performance, love without cost. Whatever it was, offer it now, gently and sincerely to yourself. Each quiet act of self-compassion becomes a bridge back to your authentic self. Each moment of rest becomes an act of gentle rebellion against the years you were forced to remain strong. Your sensitivity, once mistaken for weakness, is truly your greatest strength. It connects you deeply with others, allowing you profound empathy and understanding. You don't need to hide it or fear it anymore. Your inner child, with all their quiet tenderness, holds the keys to your deepest wisdom. What if your greatest pain was never the trauma itself, but the silence around it, the absence of anyone acknowledging your struggle? Today, perhaps the most powerful choice you can make is a quiet promise to the child you once were. From now on, you'll never face this alone again. If this resonates with you, consider joining us. Subscribe to our channel and explore more videos like this, as we continue to uncover the quiet truths that guide you gently toward healing, self-discovery, and a deeper understanding of who you've always been.